My name is Zoe Drew and this is my Level 3 Forest School Leader training videos for fire for Unit 2. So it has been fairly damp recently. I've chosen to do fire in winter because in the summer it was really hot, dry summer, and so it seemed safer to wait until the winter. But we have then had quite prolonged rain. So I've got a layer of straw, just happen to have some straw, so I've got a layer of straw underneath my cotton wool tinder layer. So I'm just laying that out, pulling it apart so that it's not too dense, and to try and get a nice heart in my fire. And then I'm going to be using a flat lay structure. So I've got my dragon's breath. So I've lit that. I'm going to pop my gauntlets on now, and I've got some fine kindling to put onto my fire in that flat lay pattern. I've been drying out kindling for a few days. As I say, it's been really wet. So I've been making sure that I've got some dry material, and say I'm just using that to try and get a nice sustained flame. Around my fire I have built a frame of green logs so that it doesn't spread. I've also chosen to build it on bare ground, bare earth, so that it doesn't catch on anything else. I'm just going to waft a little bit of air in there at the bottom just to try and get some real heat in it and to help that kindling to catch. As you can see, there's a bit of a breeze today. Which is blowing the smoke away from me off to the side, which is really handy. It's also providing that good oxygen supply to my fire. So what I'm aiming for here is that when the initial tinder of the cotton wool and the straw has burnt off, that I've got a sustained heat and a sustained flame from the kindling, so that I can cook on this. So you can see the flames are starting to catch there, so I just, without swamping the fire, I just need to make sure that I'm putting my material on gradually. So I'm using my gauntlets to make sure that I am safe and I'm not going to sustain a burn. So I've got my fire retardant gauntlets. I've also, for safety purposes, got a bowl of water behind me for minor burns that you can hopefully see, and on the other side I've got my red fire blanket and my first aid kit there for with my burns kit in it. So that has got burns dressings and creams in it. So I've got some good flames and heat going in there now. That kindling starting to catch. I say it's been a real challenge because it's been so wet recently. So having dry enough ground and dry enough fuel to use has been a real challenge. So I just want to get a really good heart in that fire to enable me to cook. So I'm going to be cooking two things today. I'm going to be cooking a tortilla pizza, and I'm going to be doing a gnocchi in tomato sauce. So the really good thing about gnocchi is that as it cooks, when it's cooked, it floats to the surface, which makes it nice and clear that it's ready. So we're going to be cooking that once we are confident that we have got a nice flame. So my water, which I have brought for my minor burns treatment, is also obviously very handy for hand washing. So I just want to make sure I've got a nice strong fire before I start doing that. Those flames going nicely in there, and now that all that cotton wool is burnt off, we know that that's our kindling rather than our tinder material that is starting to burn there. So while that is going, I can wash my hands ready for my pizza. So I'm keeping my cooking nice and simple. I've got a cool bag with me so that I can keep my food hygienic, stored away, cool. And with the age group I'm working with, 5 and 6-year-old children, I would be showing them myself how to do the cooking. So I've got a tortilla that I've put into my pan, and I can put over my flames. I'm going to have one gauntlet hand and one non-gauntlet hand. I have got some simple tomato sauce that I can use on top of my pizza, and I've also grated some cheese ahead of time so that I'm having the minimum amount of handling of food, and that's really just for the topping of the pizza. So I can see in my pan that my tortilla is starting to bubble and to heat through. As the pan heats up, I'm just keeping a check on it to make sure that I'm not stifling the fire while I'm cooking as well. I'm going to leave that for a minute and just re-wash my hands because I've got a cough. And I'm using my respect position. I've got my kneelers under one knee and one knee up so that I can move away from the fire easily, and I've got a nice stable base. So I'm going to turn my tortilla over in my pan. And now it's got to that stage, I can open my jar of sauce. And carefully removing it from the heat, I can add a little bit of sauce onto my pizza. Now while I put my lid back on, and I've got a spoon to mix that around, wipe that on top of the pizza, put it back onto the heat, add a bit more. And then I can add a bit of grated cheese onto my pizza as well. And just let the heat melt the cheese. And then in between my two recipes, I'm just going to let my fire rest for a moment, make sure that I have still got those sustained flames and that I'm not smothering it. So pizza's starting to really take shape now and to melt that cheese. So hopefully you can see that there. And I'm going to use my gauntlet just to add some more fuel to keep that burning nicely. And then for my other recipe, I am going to be, as said before, cooking some gnocchi with tomato sauce and cheese. So I've done a sort of dry frying recipe here, really simple one, really simple pizza. And then I'm going to be doing one with boiling in just a moment. So my cheese is starting to melt nicely now, which is great. So while that's happening, and I can see I've got some nice flames still there, I can prepare my boiling recipe. So I've got my pan, and I've got some water in my flask, so it's nice and hot already. And I can add just the water I need to my pan. So gnocchi is a really good choice because it doesn't need long in the hot water, and even if the water isn't completely at boiling, it starts to cook really quickly anyway. And it also is very good at, it's very easy to see when it's ready because it floats to the surface. So again, to reduce the amount of handling of the food that I need to do, I've put my portion of gnocchi into a box. And I've got my water, which hopefully you can see is steaming anyway. As I say, I brought boiling water with me, so it won't take long to get it back up to temperature. I've just moved my pan to the edge, so actually that cheese, as you can probably see, has melted really nicely, but it can just keep warm at the edge of the fire and carry on melting while I add my gnocchi to my pan. So at the moment that gnocchi is just sitting at the bottom of the pan, but as I say, it's really good because it indicates when it's ready. So it will just float back up. And also it's quite fun for the kids to watch from a safe distance. They can see it floating up and they can tell you when it's ready. We're very lucky that we've got a fire pit with chairs around the outside, so the children will be looking down on it. Excuse me. So as I say, I've got a cough today, which is why I have to keep washing my hands, but it's a really good chance to teach the children more about food hygiene. Okay, I would want to add some more fuel to make sure that my fire keeps going. Got some good flames there. So other good things to cook if you've got a large bonfire. When I've been doing brush clearing before, clearing things like blackthorn, hawthorn, and having a big sustained fire, we've baked jacket potatoes in the embers. So with those, you want to double wrap them in foil and put them really into the embers rather than into the sustained flames. Or I've used a big metal ammunitions box before, which has also worked really, really well. So is my pizza now finished with a nice melted cheese. I'm just going to leave that on the edge, as I say, to keep it warm. That works really well. And just making sure, as I say, that we're keeping those flames going throughout. It's probably hard to see, but the gnocchi is starting to rise up in the pan now. Show that they are cooked. So I'm going to take that pizza out of the way. So that's finished, and just put it on the earth so it's going to just cool down. Bank that fire up a little bit more. Some really good heat coming from that fire now, which is great. Just keeping those flames fanned. And then when the gnocchi are cooked, I can drain them. Now what I'm going to do with that water is actually pour it back into my my bucket, so that it won't raise the temperature much, because there isn't a lot. I've only used what I really needed to in that pan to cook the gnocchi, but it will just all add to the material that I've got to dampen my fire out at the end, and to ensure that it is completely burnt through. So I'm just going to give that another minute to make sure that they are cooked through. I'm going to try not to add too much or any more in the way of fuel, because I want to make sure that it's all burnt down at the end. So I'm just going to bring it in a bit, bank it up a bit to make sure I'm getting that heat. Some unburnt pieces that I can just take out and put on the damp soil to the side. And then my gnocchi are pretty much cooked. So I've got my strainer, so I'm going to strain them into my safety water bowl, now that I don't need it for hand washing, because it's just going to give me more water to add to the fire when I have burnt it down. So there are my, hopefully you can see that, my cooked gnocchi. And my fire's starting to burn down a little bit there, which suits me fine. So I can just put that back over. I can add some of my tomato sauce, very simple, just jar tomato sauce, which worked really well for the pizza as well. And I can use my spoon, which I'm keeping hygienically in my bag, and just stir that round and heat it through. So it's nice, simple. You can do it with pasta as well, sort of quick cook pasta. But I just prefer gnocchi. I think it's a bit more unusual, and when I'm working with young children, I like to try and give them new experiences, like trying new foods. So I'm just going to add a little bit of cheese in there now and stir that through, just to let it melt, to give the second of my dishes a nice cheesy flavour. And that's my gnocchi for boiling. Just going to put that to one side and just wipe off my hands to get the sauce off them. And then I'm going to start the process of getting my fire to burn down. Now while I'm doing that, I could put either of those dishes back around, so that they can stay warm, keep warm. It's a good time while you're eating to allow the fire to burn down. So I've got a fair bit of material here that is dry. Some of the bigger bits that haven't burnt down so much, I can start to move those to the side. Say the air is very damp, so any bits that haven't burnt at all, I can start to move to the side and just let those cool down on their own. Anything that is burning or has partly burnt, I'm just going to keep pushing that into the middle to try and get it to burn. So you can see I've still got those sustained flames there. So as I say, I could put the pan back over and get that to burn down. See, I've still got a bit of the straw in there to burn up. And still some really good flames in there, so still some nice heat coming out of it. But it was also a nice small contained fire. So as I say, as well as putting it on the bare earth, I put these fairly fresh cut laurel branches to frame it. So I'm just going to keep encouraging that material to burn up. If I'd got children sitting around here, I'd want them to be a metre away from the fire. Say with the age group that I work with, I wouldn't be getting them to cook close range like this. I have seen colleagues use very long pointed sticks so that children can still sit a real distance away, but toast marshmallows, which I think works really well with them as well, especially, as I say, with young children who aren't so aware and so understanding of the dangers of fire. So again, we've had, as well as having benches that are far away from the fire, having a bright kind of cord that's at least a metre away from it if it's a temporary fire like this, so that the children know they don't come within that area, they don't run nearby. And of course, I'm never leaving the fire. I haven't left it while it's just me here, but while I've got children with me as well, I certainly wouldn't be leaving the fire to do anything else.